Good morning and welcome back to Keto Living with Dale and Judith. Today's video is Dale's Keto Flour Tortilla recipe. 4.9 grams of net carbs each. I've made this video in the past, but I've changed the recipe because I wanted to make a lower net carb count. I'm going to be making 12 tortillas. 2 1/4 cups of almond flour. And you want to buy the fine almond flour. You don't want almond meal that's still going to have the skins in it, and it's not going to make a smooth bread-like texture. So if you're using a nutrition app like we use Carb Manager to enter your recipes and figure out your net carbs, and your results are different than mine, that's because I try to pick the common food value for each of the ingredients. If you pick the brand nutritional value for things like almond flour and coconut flour, they're going to have different net carb counts. So I always try to pick the common food value. That's why sometimes your net carb numbers will be off from mine. Because things like almond flour and coconut flour, they're not standardized. The USDA doesn't have a standard for those. Not like white flour or wheat flour has a standard. Three-fourths of a cup of coconut flour. And this is important. Don't omit the coconut flour because this is what's going to add that charred tortilla taste. You know how the traditional flour tortillas have the brown and black spots on them? Almond flour won't do that. That comes from the coconut flour. But you don't add as much coconut flour as almond flour because coconut flour can be really dry. Two tablespoons of xanthan gum. And this is also a very important ingredient. It replaces the stickiness of gluten. Almond flour and coconut flour don't contain gluten. That's what causes dough to stick together. So keto baking requires a replacement for the gluten. And in this tortilla recipe, that replacement is xanthan gum. One tablespoon of baking powder. Keto also requires something to cause your baked good to puff up, and that's either going to be baking powder or eggs. One-half a teaspoon of salt. Now you can increase the amount of salt or omit it altogether. The salt's for taste. It doesn't add any function in the recipe. Now you want to mix it all together. We want to combine our liquid ingredients in a separate container because we don't want any streaks of eggs in our tortilla dough. And we want the apple cider vinegar that we're adding, we want that flavor to be spread all throughout the dough. Half a cup of water plus 1 tablespoon. 3 eggs. Hang on, let me check my notes for the apple cider vinegar. And it's 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. You can always find a typed out recipe at the very end of the description. Under the video title, click more, and a lot of text will drop down, and the recipe will always be at the end. I use apple cider vinegar in most of my keto breads because it adds kind of a wheat taste. Now understand, I've been doing ketos for 8 years, and through those 8 years, my taste buds have changed. I don't even remember what, traditional breads and cookies and desserts taste like. My brain has gotten used to keto baking. It's going to be a thick dough, so make sure you use a really strong spatula. Oil your hands good because it's also a very sticky dough. You want to make it into a ball, then you're going to cover it and let it rest for 10 minutes because the coconut flour, it needs time to absorb the liquid. Now it's time to press the tortillas. We're going to divide the dough 12 ways. And you can weigh the dough if you want more accuracy. Now I have rheumatoid arthritis, so I prefer to use a heavy cast iron tortilla press to make the tortillas. When I started this, I would roll them out, and someone suggested trying to press them with a plate, and that was just too painful for me. I used to make these all the time. I still make them and use these for dill pizza crust. That's another way I use this tortilla dough. So I invested in a cast iron tortilla press. It's really helped me a lot. I don't remember, but the price now I think is around $25. You can find any links to supplies for our videos down in the description. It's about 55 grams for each tortilla ball. And I'm making 12. When you press them, you're going to have to press them between parchment paper, and I like to buy these 8-inch rounds. I'm using new ones today, but I do save these. I keep them in the freezer in a Ziploc baggie, and I reuse them over and over again. So heat your skillet on medium-high heat, and make sure your kitchen is well vented. This is an old kitchen. We don't have a vent. So I set up a fan to suck out the smoke out the old transom window. I propped it open. Okay, I pushed the griddle aside so I can explain. The first few tortillas you cook, they're going to cook slower. And they're going to take more time. But once your griddle or skillet really gets hot, it's only going to take like 6 seconds each side. And you'll see that in the next few tortillas we cook. And they're going to get browner. You'll notice when you put it on there how it starts to bubble on the top. That's when you know to flip it over. You're going to need to adjust the heat as you go. By the end, it was turned all the way down to medium-low. They made 12 tortillas at 4.9 grams of net carbs each. Just realized, forgot I was going to save a couple uncooked to show you how to make enchiladas with flour tortilla. Those are best made with the dough still raw. Oh well, I'll be making more dough. Come back and check how we use these to make quesadillas. Dale's going to be having those on Fridays for dinner. Our next video, we're going to make crab quesadillas. After they're cool, you're going to want to layer them between parchment paper and put them in a baggie and store them in the freezer because they don't have any preservatives in them. And Dale is the only one in the house that eats these, so he could not eat those up before they went bad if I left them on the shelf. Thank you for visiting Keto Living with Dale and Judith. See you later. Bye-bye.